Hey guys, Nick from KN Tech, welcome back. Welcome to what is going to be part 4 and the final part of the 3900X PC upgrade build series. If you haven't seen the previous 3 videos, I'm going to put a link to the playlist up in the top left hand corner. Go check it out. You don't have to check it out, but it will give you a bit of an understanding as to where we are at with the build at the moment. So what we're going to be doing in this one is we're going to be taking the Wraith cooler off of the 3900X, and we're going to be putting on a water cooling block, putting a 360 rad in it, seeing if we can get the fans configured, and then we're going to do some comparisons for temperatures on air cooling and on water cooling for this build. Stick around guys and we'll see how it turns out. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take all the top panels and the front panel off, and I'm going to see about getting the Wraith cooler off, and I'm going to see about getting the radiator installed. Like the GPU's got to come out so I can get the air cooler off. Now we'll clean the thermal paste off the CPU. So here's the radiator I'm going to be using. This is a Corsair Hydro X series, and this is the XR5360. So this is the slimline one out of the two. They do a slimline and they also do a slightly thicker one. So this is a 30mm thick fan. The other one I believe is a 50mm, but you may want to check that out. Okay, so let's get the fans on. Next job is to get the radiator mounted. Okay, so that's the radiator mounted with the fans. Just got to tidy up some of the cables now so that when the front panel goes on they don't notice too much. So the Corsair XC7 RGB cooler comes with an Intel plate. You can see that's square, so that's the LGA 1150X, so that's the 1151, so that's going to be your Intel chips. In order to use it for the AM4 chip, I need AM4 socket. I need to attach the bracket for the AM4 socket. It's real simple to do. You lift it up, you take the cover off, the protective cover off, which I've already done for the thermal paste. Simply pop the protective cover off, give this a quarter turn counterclockwise, lift it off, and then you can just simply pop the new one on and then lock it in place. And then just to make sure you don't smudge the thermal paste, I advise putting the cover back on until you're ready to actually install it. So in order to mount the Corsair water block on, you need to take out the existing mounting hardware. So I'm going to whip that out, and obviously it has a backplate on it as well. So I'm going to take out this hardware and the backplate, and then we can have a go at installing the backplate and the liquid cooler, the liquid Corsair cooler. And that was the sound of the backplate popping off the back. And there we can see, here's the original backplate and the original mounting hardware. Don't forget to set these to one side guys and keep these safe, because if ever you want to sell this on, you're going to want to be able to put this back on again when you sell it. So here we have the backplate and the mounting screws for the Corsair cooler. So I'm going to go ahead and get that installed. Don't forget to follow the instructions guys, because there's a lot of little spacers and washers, both metal and plastic, and you need to make sure you get these in the right order, otherwise you potentially could damage your motherboard. See guys, I'm using a small washer to go between the posts and the PCB. This is just going to ensure that the posts are not going to damage the circuit, the PCB in any way. Now we're about ready to fit the block. Interesting to note with this block is you can see which way is the inlet and which one's the outlet. This one here, you can see it has an arrow pointing into it. This is actually the inlet, so this is where the water comes in and this is where the water comes out. Now because I'm going to have my inlet coming down from the basement where I have the pump, the bottom of the power supply shroud, I'm going to have to spin mine round like that because I want it to come in this side and then come out this side, and from here I want it to head off over to the radiator. So now I can go ahead and get this fitted. Don't forget to remove the plastic insulation covering the thermal paste on the back. Again, don't forget opposite corners just until it tightens down, and you can bottom these out because they have springs in them, so you can tighten them down until they'll go no further, but don't over tighten them, otherwise you risk damaging the thread on the captive nut on the nuts. So now we're ready to reconstruct the pump assembly, which sits in the bottom of the underneath the power supply shroud right here, and then we can also get to work on getting the reservoir installed, and then hopefully we can start thinking about getting it filled with some liquid. So there we have the D5 pump. I put all the fittings on the front and it looks kind of messy, I know, but the idea is that's actually all going to fit up. That will all line up with the fittings that are in there and allow me to have the water go down through the basement, through the bottom of the PSU shroud, and then obviously it'll come back up again and go straight into the CPU. Okay, so that's now ready to get fitted back into the computer, and you can see I've got one spare barb here, and that's where I'm actually going to put the tubing that's going to go out to the tap, which is going to be my drain port. That's going to be on the back side of the case. That way I don't have to ever worry about lifting this PSU shroud up again once I've got it all fitted. Okay, let's go and get this PSU shroud along with the pump fitted, and that way we can leave this one alone and not have to worry about getting to this again. Okay, so now we can refit our GPU. Okay, so I've been having a look at the way these brackets for the reservoir are going to mount on the sides like this, and what I'm thinking I might do actually is I might actually separate the bracket that holds the reservoir. So I might separate the bracket that holds the reservoir from the bracket that goes onto the fans, as you can see right here. And what I might do is I might actually have these attached on the back of this panel here. This panel is very secure anyway, and it means if I just drill a hole through there, I can mod this a little bit and put that on there, and that means that the reservoir is going to be nice and vertical and it's going to be nice and secure in place, and it's not going to have to worry about holding onto these fan brackets right here. So I'm going to go ahead and get this drilled and I'll be right back. Okay, so I've just drilled a hole for the brackets on the back panel, and if I pop this back in now, you can see this is going to fit quite nicely. So now we have the reservoir mounted, and you can see I've had to take the GPU out again just so I can get to the brackets on the reservoir. So the reservoir is now mounted. Now all I've got to do is run the tubing, and then we should be ready hopefully to get a fill. Okay, well I've got the tubing runs done now. All I need to do is put the exhaust fans on the top and the back, and then we can get a fill. Okay, time for the fill. I'm going to be going with the EK Cryo Fuel Blood Red again because I had that previously and I kind of like the look of it. Okay, I'm going to break the recording right here. I'm going to draw your attention to the back of my reservoir, and you can see I have a small plug at the bottom here, and when I first started to fill it I noticed I had a leak from here, and this is simply because I didn't tighten it up before I actually started to fill it with liquid. This is an easy remedy. It's a simple case of just tightening it up, and therefore we can stop the leak. So I've gone ahead and tightened that up. I'm just going to put a little bit of liquid in the bottom of the reservoir now, just so we can test and make sure it's not going to leak anymore. Perfect. Now we can get back to the sexy field footage. So after a minor hiccup, we can see the loop is now full and it's not leaking. I'm going to run this now for an hour or two while I do the cable management around the back. So the key to the back panel is going to be the Commander Pro. I need to put this somewhere where I can get the LED cable from the CPU block and all of the fan cables all plugged into this right here. So that's all the fans plugged in. I've got all the RGB lights plugged in as well to the RGB splitter. Now I need to try and mount this and get all the cables managed so that it looks a little bit presentable. So I've pretty much got all the cable management done now. It looks a lot neater. It doesn't look super neat at the moment, but when I put the panels on the back that cover up all the cables, it should look a whole lot better. Had to remove one of the RGB cables from the Corsair fan hub just so I can get the screw in for this last back panel, but that's fine because I can slot that back in as soon as I've got this screw in. And there we can see the cable management looks a whole lot tidier now. So I'm going to get the back panel put on, the top and the front panels put back on, and then we can fire it up and we can see how it works. So there we can see all the RGBs now working both on the CPU block, the RAM, which was always anyway, and also on the Corsair fans at the top and the back. The RGB is also working on the front Corsair fans. I'm not a great fan of the rainbow puke. I'll probably change that for a more static colour scheme a little bit later down the line. Maybe red and white to go with the theme of the build I've got already. So there you have it, guys. That's how I took my Ryzen 3900X build, which you've already seen, and I added the water cooling to it using the Corsair water cooling products that I'd ordered. I did some testing before I actually took the air cooling off the 3900X. So I ran Cinebench for 5 minutes. And the maximum temperature I got up to on air cooling was 83.1 degrees C. Now on the water cooling I ran the same test and got up to 74.1 degrees. I will say that the room temperature was a couple of degrees warmer when I did it with the water cooling. So once you adjust that for the ambient temperature, I'm getting about 12 degrees cooler or so less on water cooling than I am on air cooling. Something else that I did notice when I was running the Cinebench tests, the score was actually higher on water cooling. So the maximum score I got on air cooling was 68.73 and the maximum I got on water cooling was 69.62. That's a significant increase. It's almost 100 points higher. I guess that's because there's more thermal headroom for the CPU to be able to overclock itself. Well, that's it, guys. We finally come to the end of the last video in this upgrade series. If you guys haven't checked out the other videos, I'll stick another link to it up in the top right hand corner there. I hope you like the videos in this series. Don't forget to like the videos if you do. Sound off in the comments below what system you're using. Are you using water cooled? Are you using air cooled? Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and also hit the bell notification button so you can be notified when I put more videos up. Thanks for watching this video and all the others in the series. I'll see you on the next one.